Hello and welcome to Discovering Grayslake, unveiling the stories and people that make our town so unique. I'm your host, David Woll, and I'm thrilled to bring you this new podcast that explores fascinating stories and experiences of local business owners and community leaders, right here where we call home. Grayslake Rehabilitation Center is a community-based private practice physical therapy provider. Do you know they have 13 clinical providers with various levels of specialties, including orthopedics, sports, neurology, vestibular, geriatrics, pelvic floor, and aquatic? What? Did I just say they have a pool? Well, they do, and it's the largest indoor warm water pool in Lake County, featuring 2 underwater treadmills and swim currents, and recently added clinical treatment specialties, in layman's terms, shockwave. They have both radial and focus units that are the newest tool in regenerative medicine, available to everyone. They pride themselves on the most current and up-to-date specialized care to keep you moving. If you're looking for physical therapy, make sure to see our friends at Grayslake Rehabilitation. 1 minute, your world is normal. The next, it's gone. A flood, a fire, a crime scene. Your home shattered. Your business shut down. Your life on pause. But in the darkest hour, when chaos knocks at your door, that's when Serve Pro of Northwest Lake County shows up. Not just a company, not just a cleanup crew, but neighbors, parents, coaches, locals who care. Drake and his team aren't just restoring properties. They're restoring peace, restoring dignity, restoring lives. So when your worst day arrives, call the oh no guy who becomes your thank God guy. Serve Pro of Northwest Lake County. Locally owned, nationally known, unshakably trusted. From devastation to restoration. Serve Pro, Northwest Lake County. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Discovering Grayslake. I am at the Loop Marketing, right at the end of Lake Street and Center Street, under the what I like to call the luxury condominiums, in air quotes. Fun here. But I have James Zahn with me today. How are you, James?
Doing well.
Okay, so we were just talking that we lived in the same town for all of this time, and I don't know how we haven't met each other.
I don't know. It's a small town, but there's still a lot of people here. Right. So I think I've probably seen you in passing at a parade or one of the holiday festivals or something.
Absolutely.
But you can always say that you know everybody, but you never really know everybody.
That's just the truth. I like that. Okay, and on the interwebs, you're known as the Rock Father.
That's true.
Okay. What is the Rock Father? What is it? Where does that name come from?
The Rock Father was a nickname that came to me just because my wife and I had our first kid 16 years ago. And at that time, I was really embedded in the film and music industries.
Okay.
And if you've ever seen me, as we're sitting here now, the gauntlets, the goatee, all of that, it sort of plays into it. So I took on this moniker, and at that time, too, because I was also attached to publishing, I had been doing a lot of work for other companies, and I was actually, at that time, still on the cusp of coming out of working for Fangoria Entertainment, which, if you remember Fangoria and Starlog magazines that you used to get at the grocery store years ago, the sci-fi and the horror stuff, I was working for them. And my wife kept saying, you know, you do all this publishing for other people, you should really do something for yourself. And at that time, right when we had our first daughter, it was also when this movement of parent bloggers became a thing.
Yes.
So you had like the mommy bloggers and the daddy bloggers and stuff, and I sort of planted my flag in that space as the Rock Father. And it really took off because I had started what I thought was going to be a small blog or website, and it really just expanded into a digital magazine, which still exists to this day, but the content is significantly different. But the Rock Father became my handle everywhere, and everywhere that I've gone in business since then, it's been a part of me. I am the Rock Father, he is me, that type of thing.
Well, let me give everybody a brief thing. It's really funny. So I started looking at your stuff a couple years ago, and I saw it. I'm like, who is this guy? And then I was like, wait, he's from Grayslake? But everything from like CNN interviews to all of the stuff, I'm like, this guy's on top of his game in your industry. So I looked up a couple things, and I was so you're a writer, you're a director, you're a commentator. known for your reviews of toys and other products, especially those related to movies, pop culture. So far, am I close to that?
It's in the ballpark.
All right, and editor-in-chief of the Toy Book.
Yep.
And senior editor at the Pop Insider and the Toy Insider.
That's correct, too.
Wow, see? The interwebs worked good for me on
Yes.
this one. But looking through all that, and you brought books with today, too, like the magazine, the Toy Book. Before we go into all of that and your expertise, how does one end up in the space? Like, what you seem like a very creative, especially probably growing up. Like, it has to be an interesting way that you get to do what you do.
Yeah, I would say there's no roadmap for it at all. I have been either fortunate or foolish enough to build a career and a life built on doing things that people say that I can't do, that aren't going to happen, that there's no possible way to do. Sometimes taking the hard route, which ends up being the right route. But from a very young age, I mean, I was creative as a kid, and I didn't grow up around here. I grew up in the far south suburbs. I was born in Chicago Heights. The hospital is now a pile of rubble. A little bit of a rough area down there, but I grew up down there. Definitely, born in the 70s, child of the 80s. Loved all the things that boys of my age and ilk did. Knight Rider, my favorite show. Loved Dukes of Hazzard and Fall Guy and the toys, G.I. Joe and He-Man and all of that. Yeah, so there was all of these things, Star Wars and seeing those other worlds out there. And I love to draw and I love to write and act and perform, and I would make fake radio shows, just holding up the tape deck and record a song off the radio and then do my own intro, splice it in there, play and pause, that type of thing.
Looking for a car dealer that actually feels like your hometown? Welcome to City Chevrolet of Grayslake, where the vibe is friendly, the pressure is off, and you'll always be treated like family. Meet Anthony Scala. He's just not the owner. He's a guy that grew up in the car business, worked his way from porter to owner. Anthony believes in people first. That's why City Chevy sponsors your kids' teams, your town events. And matter of fact, this show, they give back every chance they get. Anthony thinks that the experience of buying a car should be fun. No pressure, just honest people who care. Whether you need a new Chevy, a quality used car, or just service you can trust, City Chevy is here for you. Come visit City Chevrolet of Grayslake right off of 120. And thank you for sponsoring our town, our stories, our voice. Let's get after it, Grayslake.
My first real writing experience was 1987. I had written something that was submitted by my elementary school to the Illinois Young Authors competition, and it did win an award. It was a story about a racehorse that in reality is terribly outside the scope of fact and reality. I made up a bunch of stuff. I was a kid, I had a harness horse running in the Kentucky Derby. That's not a thing. But people liked it. So I got to go spend a day at Illinois State University when I was a young boy, and that was a pretty cool thing. And there were other kids there too that were all writers, but I continued to write stories. And then at one point in the 90s, I had moved to Iowa for 4 years with my dad. Parents were divorced, so one was here in Illinois, my mom. I moved out there for a few years, so I started high school in Illinois, freshman and part of my sophomore year, and then February of my sophomore year, I moved to Davenport, Iowa, to the Quad Cities. But among the many things that I ended up getting into, because I was playing golf and baseball, but very into music and film and stuff, and oddly enough, politics keeps swirling around me and has my entire life. My dad was a village trustee back in the day and all of these things. So I get to Iowa, I'm the new kid. I decided I'm going to run for vice president of my class. And I won that same school year. So February I land there, and by the time summer break goes, I'm vice president going into my junior year.
Nice work.
So, yeah, it worked out. And during that first summer in Iowa, I really got into the idea of cable access, which was a big thing at the time.
Absolutely.
And I basically had set up at the local Cox Cable, and they had facilities you could use, and they would train you to use them. So I had a nice VHS camcorder that I had borrowed from an aunt, and then I learned how to use all the big tape decks and the video toaster and all of this stuff, and essentially threw myself into a trial by fire of producing 40 half-hour episodes that I wrote, shot, directed, got a bunch of local kids to be in, like sketch comedy, Saturday Night Live meets Wayne's World, but with a rock and roll flavor. And then I decided, all right, I'm going to push this absurd thing one step further, and I'm going to get real guests on this show. So, 15 years old, my favorite band at the time, which is still my favorite band now, it's called Faith No More. And most people at the time knew them for their single Epic and being on SNL and all of this stuff. And they had a new album coming out. This was 1992. And I saw that they were going to be playing in Davenport. So pick up the phone. And for the youngsters that are listening to this that don't know, there was a time before the internet where you had to have a phone book. And if you didn't have the right phone book, you had to dial 411.
Yes.
So I did a lot of dialing 411 from the corded kitchen phone at my dad's apartment, and I started going through the CD booklets. And I call, what is this? Slash Records, part of Warner Brothers, Los Angeles. All right, 411, give me the number for Slash Records. I get Slash Records on the phone. Yeah, I'm looking to find out who's running publicity for the band Faith No More. And they're like, well, we don't handle that here. That's a guy in New York named Mark Satloff at Shorefire Media. You're going to have to call him. And he'll talk to the manager. Do you have the phone number? No, we don't. Well, I'll call 411 again. Well, Shorefire Media in New York. So finally call up. I get this guy on the phone. It's like, yeah, this sounds like an interesting idea. Send me a demo tape. So, of course, I have to send this guy a VHS, which I have to make the VHS, then send the VHS. It takes a little time. It's going in the mail. Now I would just send somebody a video clip and we're done. And surprisingly, I get a call one day and talk to the management, talk to the band, they're in. So September 22nd, 1992, I'm sitting with one of my stepbrothers at the Coliseum Ballroom in Davenport with all 5 members of the band.
Awesome.
At a time when they had just got off tour with Guns N' Roses and Metallica. They had a new record out, and Helmet was opening, who I also loved. And here you have this essentially dorky kid, me, doing his first ever interview in any capacity, but with his favorite band and doing it on television. So from that, it led to other things. Then it became easier. Because getting that door open with that record label, then it opened the door to Capitol Records. So by January, I've got Dave Mustaine from Megadeth, and I've got this new band that was on tour with him, with opening for Megadeth, which this combo, if you know the band Megadeth and what they do, this combo seems strange. This new band called Stone Temple Pilots on their very first tour. And I get to hang out with this guy with all of his belongings in a big black hefty bag. His name was Scott Weiland, who became one of the most iconic rock singers of the 90s.
Wow.
And that opened other doors. And then we had White Zombie. And again, by the time I'm 16, and now it's funny in retrospect because kids do this on YouTube all the time now. You see like kids interviewing bands and stuff. But at that time, if anybody else was doing this, we didn't hear about it because, again, no internet or anything. So that led to me being able to write. I got my first professional writing gig in 1993 doing a music column.
We're taking a quick break just to say hello because everybody knows Nano. And Nano knows real estate. And actually, I believe that's the name of her Instagram page. So if you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or know somebody in the market for a home, contact Nano from Baird & Warner. She's a Grayslake girl helping out Grayslake people.
In the Quad Cities, I ended up working for 3 publications out there. I did the first one was called Oil the Music Tabloid out of Moline. These were newsprint, free publications you would find at the local shops. But I did that one, and then I went to work they had a competitor in the next town over, Rock Island, called Slowfish, and I worked for them for a little bit. And then one of those guys set up shop across the river in Davenport and created the River Cities Reader, which was more of a little bit more mainstream type of thing. And that publication still exists to this day. So that became very successful. But I was writing music columns in high school and also doing all the normal high school things. So I was going to school. I was still playing sports until my junior year. Then I had started working at the local Hy-Vee grocery store because you got to get some money and have income going on. A lot was happening, but I was just learning a ton. And from there, all of these things, I always say it's like the movie Almost Famous, but instead of the 70s, it was the early 90s.
Sure.
So I got to do all of that stuff. But then after high school and stuff, I tried college for a bit and did that. And then I explored playing in a band myself and learning the business side of things, and found myself going corporate for a while. And I built up this big retail background, which is when I kind of skirted into the toy industry. And then you get into the current century, and that stuff is all sort of spinning together because from a business perspective, a lot of things work together that you don't think of initially. Like retail, selling things to a consumer, you're dealing with a lot of trends, preferences, analytics, but then, how does that stuff get there? Well, you've got entertainment informing that. Then you've got partnerships going both ways with licensing. You just start putting all the pieces together.
Yeah.
And as I was doing all of that, then I started thinking, okay, what's next? So I quit my job and went back to film school in the early 2000s, like 2001. It was because 9/11 had happened that fall. Did that. Really wanted to go into screenwriting and doing more acting, and ended up getting to do those. I did them and knocked down some doors and didn't have an agent. And then I got an agent and I did commercials, and I started getting more into publishing. And again, there's this overlap where I'm working a regular job, I'm writing screenplays. I then got a chance to do comic books, so I had a published comic out there.
Wow.
And it just all starts compounding, that there's all of these skill sets that go together. So media, direction, all of it, this stuff that we're doing here. We were talking a little bit earlier today that I did a podcast in 2005 on video that was featured on the homepage of MySpace. So I just started looking towards the next thing, and I got to go and work for the publishers in New York. I was a remote guy then, doing Fangoria and Starlog, and still doing music and film on the side. And then ended up in a national commercial for Wendy's and doing some industrials, as they call them, trading videos for people, a couple feature films that I popped up in. But at the same time, I was very firm, my wife and I, both of us, and we met in 97. Started dating in 97, got married in 99. And we were very firm on staying planted in Illinois. Mm-hmm. And our lives had taken both of us. We were both, because I moved back to Illinois in 96. We were both South suburban kids that eventually ended up in Lake County. And 16 years ago, we ended up in Grayslake, and that's where we're planted. But lots of things ended up happening, and as I was doing all of that other stuff, and this is a long way to get back to that answer of how did you get here?
Right.
Hey neighbors, this is Bill Mock with the Grayslake Chamber of Commerce. And if you're looking for a network of hard-working, customer-focused, and generally friendly local businesses who are dedicated to helping each other succeed, then I'd like to invite you to check out and consider joining our Grayslake Chamber. We offer our members so many ways to advance their businesses through social networking events, special event sponsorships, informative lunch and learns, and the ever-popular after-hours mixers. Come see why we say we're the new wave of business here in Lake County.
This is Bob Churchill. I know you are always there for your family, caring for your children, your spouse, and even your parents. But in critical times, will you be able to make decisions that assure the best result for your family? A power of attorney may be necessary if on behalf of a loved one you need to talk to a doctor, a bank, or the college infirmary. A power of attorney may sound daunting, but the lawyers at Churchill, Quinn, Hamilton, and Van Doncelar can easily create this document for you. We are right here in Grayslake, supporting the community for over 122 years. Reach out to us at grayslakelaw.com or call us at 847-223-1500. Whether you need a power of attorney, a will, or legal help with your business, we'll take care of you so you can care for others. Go to grayslakelaw.com today for more information. Have a wonderful day, and now back to the program.
Once that Rockfather thing really started sticking with people, I had ended up on the radar of adventure media and events in New York. And the CEO, Lori Schacht, she wanted to get me in there, and a couple other people did, to do some things with toys, because I was doing a lot of media, a lot of publishing, and the toy industry and the licensing industry and the entertainment industry, how they all play together. I was really doing a lot with that. And then where on a national level it was like the fire really took off is when the original version of Toys R Us went under. I did some deep dives on that the mainstream media folks just were not picking up on certain things. And I ended up getting a couple sources on the inside over there. Then I'm poring over all these documents. My coverage of that corporate collapse of this iconic brand really, really amped up the profile. So I had several people that were trying to get me to go work for them. And after a lot of back and forth over a number of years, I ended up saying yes. And so for the past 9 years, in some capacity, I've been with Adventure Media, mostly known for being at the helm of the Toy Book and then our other publications.
Jeez. Okay, that's a lot.
So, yeah. What did that take me, 10 minutes?
Yeah, that was good. So that was so yes is the answer.
Okay.
No, that's awesome. Out of all those things you did, I admire, especially like when you're doing different stuff, like cable access stuff is great, and we always talk to young people about taking chances, following your, like, and if you have a gut thing that you think something can work, you better try it, right?
Yeah.
You've taken a lot of chances.
Oh, yeah. And there have been failures. Sure. There have been massive failures along the way. And it doesn't matter what type of business you're in. And, there's people that say this, and it's absolutely true, that it's the flops that make you stronger, because then you learn the experience. And I have a distinct lineage that I can tie to failures, successes to failures, where there was one that just sticks in my mind from around like 2005, 2006 or so, that if I hadn't made one specific mistake, I wouldn't have gotten a particular opportunity. And because I got the other opportunity, it led to another thing. So, yeah, you really just got to, it's like fighting the fight every day.
Right, and writing it out. And
pivoting.
We laugh at, like, thinking about something that at the time you thought was devastating or terrible, and then it turns out to be fantastic, right?
Yeah.
Those things, they do happen.
Yes.
That's why you try to teach, even adults now, like, stick with things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because you don't hit it on the first try, like, go. Or my favorite baseball T-shirt that says "Swing hard, just in case you hit it."
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, you might as well go for it, right? It's a fun thing. So you moved to Grayslake 16 years ago?
Yeah.
You said? And one of the reasons I really love this town is we have so many different individuals. We're talking like, living on Lake Street, like right here, it's a really cool thing. But the way that community enriches people, like, I know that your 2 daughters, is that correct?
Yep.
And both in our school systems there?
Correct.
So, and it's this obviously agree this is a great place to live. Like, Grayslake's a wonderful place.
Yeah, that was really what drew us in, because initially, when we first came into what I consider Grayslake, we were technically unincorporated the first time, and the schools were very attractive. And at that point, we had one daughter, that was an infant, but then we stuck around and gradually moved into Grayslake proper. And then the kid did a flip too, because she initially grew up thinking she was going to go to North, and instead she goes to Central, which ended up being a great thing. Walked to the school, and then her sister is over at GMS, and
who was the star of? She was the Wicked Witch, right?
That is true.
So I know a lot of people listening right now will know
she was.
who your daughter is.
If you saw the Wicked Witch that also did the show-stopping talent show performance, Ursula from The Little Mermaid recently. Yeah, that was her. So, amongst other things, Gaston in Beauty and the Beast.
Nice.
Very versatile actor. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, proud dad. So
you are, and that's a lot of the research I've done. I'm like, you know what? It's good to see a guy that's out there having fun and very proud of his daughters too.
Yes,
which is cool. Let's do this because I know that you've listened to a couple of podcasts, right? So we usually stop, around the 20 or so minute mark and do the Grayslake hot seat.
Okay.
But I did some research, and I think we're going to make this a little towards toys. How about that?
Okay.
Is that all right?
All right. Yeah, we can do whatever you want.
We'll see. All right. So we're going to do the Grayslake hot seat here. So,
okay.
The Grayslake hot seat is brought to you by Joe Velez at JPV Financial. It's often said that those who fail to plan are planning to fail. Joe Velez and his team at JPV Financial create unique financial plans that address some of the most difficult challenges that people might face as they get older. No matter what stage of life you're in, having a proactive financial plan can help navigate some of the difficult decisions you'll face, helping you live your life by design, not default. Securities and investment advisory service offered through Osaic Wealth Inc. Member FINRA SIPC. Now for the Grayslake hot seat. Hey, thanks, Joe. He-Man or Ninja Turtles?
He-Man.
Best, worst toy ever made?
Ooh, that one could get me in trouble because the people behind these things are people I deal with on a daily basis.
We can totally skip that one.
But there are some terrible ones. I will give you a terrible toy.
All right, thank you.
And I think the company's out of business. So,
all right, yeah.
There was a toy about 10 years ago called My Friend Kayla that was one of the first Bluetooth Wi-Fi enabled dolls.
Okay.
And it was a creepy looking toy that functioned poorly and got a lot of headlines about being hackable, in quotes. It was sort of getting into the Wi-Fi area. Yeah. It was a bad toy.
It's just a bad toy. Are you Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Though I will say that Strange New Worlds on Paramount Plus is a great Star Trek show.
Yes. Because I was for sure a Star Wars kid. Okay. AI and tech. Are they changing toys in a good way? Or are we losing any of the magic that comes with this?
Jury is out on that. That's something that I've actually been very involved with for the past 3 years. Right now, the biggest thing that made headlines, and I've been on the talking head circuit covering this a bit, is Mattel did a deal with OpenAI, and nobody knows yet what the first product or experience is going to be that will be revealed later this year. But what I will say is that AI is here to stay. We got to learn to use it and use it responsibly. It's not going away. It is killing jobs in my industry and others. At the same time, there are some potential upsides to it that people are working on. There was an initial batch in 2023 of AI-enabled toys. There was a teddy bear. There were a couple of robots. They all hit the market, and I would say they flopped. I can't even say spectacularly because they were just sort of duds. But they did open up some very chat GPT-like interactions with the kid, and there needs to be a lot of checks and balances in this. So AI is changing toys. Can't say yet if it's going to be for the better or worse, but and sometimes too it also does get a little bit overhyped, where in certain cases AI might be used for something like packaging, and when you pull that back, it's not even going to be like the phrase everybody likes to use is like the AI slop. It might be as simple as I'm using Photoshop, and in this suite they have like background extend, which is a task you would usually do yourself that would take hours, and now it takes you 10 seconds.
Right.
That's an appropriate use, in my opinion. Might not be the opinion of other people, but and that's been going on now for a couple of years.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one was funny. What does your home office look like? Like shelves of toys? What does it look like?
My home office is purpose built for what I do. So the one wall, I had Reslatted Woodworks from Fox Lake come in and do a nice barnwood wall for me with an American flag on it, because I also do about 100 television segments a year, many of which now we do from home with Zoom and different things. Mm-hmm. So I'm set up. I've got the lights in there. I've got a very nice desk. I've got an L-shaped desk, but it's like real furniture, so it looks pretty sweet. And then I've got a nice lighting setup in there. I do have toys on some shelves. It was supposed to have kind of the old toy factory look, I guess you could say, when I set it up, but now it looks like I don't know. Everybody went with that sort of rustic look with like the piping and the wood and all of that stuff. I mean, we're on a wood grain desk
Exactly.
right now that looks like a barn door. So it's a mix of homey and functional with a lot of cool toys, past and present, and perhaps future.
Ooh, nice.
So, yeah.
First toy you ever reviewed?
Oh, reviewed? That is interesting. I can remember the first toy that I reviewed after having a kid.
Okay, that's fair.
Which was a Fisher-Price Little People Jungle type set.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
The Little People. Yeah, it's just funny to see when you go about thinking about all the toys they have. So your first toy review for that, what's your favorite toy you've ever had to review? Is there something that you're like, wow, this is like the coolest toy ever?
Oh.
I know you have like thousands.
That's a really hard thing, because the other part of this too is it gets nuanced, where I don't think we delved into the differences between Toy Book and Toy Insider.
Not yet, no.
But sometimes stuff is very surprising. But
maybe I asked
I'll
the
have to
question
skip
wrong.
on that
yeah,
one.
no, I totally get it. Let's wrap up that, because we have so many other things that I want to talk about. Especially, so let's talk about. We were talking about publications, right? And publications are, and many things are dead.
Yep.
There's a beautiful publication that I'm holding in my hand, and this is the Toy Book. Why don't we talk about the differences between the two things that we have, because these are amazing.
Thank you. So the Toy Book is the official trade publication for the North American toy industry. It's been around since 1984. We're in our 41st volume. Print is not dead, depending on, I mean, you might have heard that somewhere, but it's not dead. It can be around and thrive and survive. And in the case of the Toy Book, we have, in the past 3-4 years, grown the readership within the industry, because it is a trade, so you're not gonna go find it on your newsstand per se, but we have a distinctive subscriber base, and we do a lot of live events where extra copies will be available, like say the North American Toy Fair or Spielwarenmesse, which is the world's biggest toy fair. That's in Nuremberg, Germany. That's where that one debuted. That was the international edition from January. But when I started with the company 9 years ago, we published 6 issues a year. We've actually increased that to 7 as of last year, so there's a demand for that. But Toy Book, I always say it's like the Hollywood Reporter, but for toys. It's the business of play. And we're on the pulse of play. And then we have a consumer side, which is the Toy Insider. And I know for a fact there are people in Grayslake that are parents that read the Toy Insider, because I've had this come up before where somebody says, oh, what do you do? And I usually say the Toy Book, because that's my main focus.
Right.
They'll be like, oh, I read something kind of like that. So it's like the Toy Insider online. I'm like, well, I work there too. So the Toy Insider is the leading consumer guide for toys. So toys, games, A little bit of kids entertainment in there. We publish a huge Toy Insider gift guide every fall. We have our top 20 list and all of that. And then our team, there's 8 of us that do television. So combined, we do about 500 segments a year. And
which is crazy. That's a lot of content.
It's a lot. Yeah, we do all of the big shows. Like in the past week, we've had people on the Today Show. We've had people on Fox and Friends. I sometimes, like, because I was the original remote hire before that was a thing. I'll do a lot of the Chicago stations. I did Channel 32 last month. I'll do News Nation, which is national, but that's upstairs at WGN. Sometimes I'll do that too. I think I've been on all the Chicago stations in some capacity, but we hit a ton of them, and sometimes we do them in studio. Sometimes we do them via Zoom now. The pandemic really accelerated that greatly, and that I think is a good thing, because sometimes, you look at it from a business perspective. Sometimes, literally, and I've done it, I'll fly to Seattle to do 3 minutes of TV and go right back to the airport. If you can do that now via Zoom, and I've got the gigabit internet, which we can get here in Grayslake now, so it's good stuff. So we do that. And then if you've heard the term kidult, that is the adult enthusiast that's typically 18 and over, your Comic-Con crowd. Oh, yes. We have another publication that launched in 2018 called The Pop Insider. So the Pop Insider is in print 4 times a year, always has big tie-ins with like New York Comic-Con and San Diego. So we serve the industry both behind the scenes and the end consumer, and we do it on all platforms. So it's all under the umbrella of Adventure Media and Events in New York. But again, I'm the one guy that just won't leave, that's just firmly planted in Grayslake. And it's been a great thing.
Wow. Okay, Comic-Con. So do you obviously go, and you have to be there. Do you have to be there like for a lot of it?
I'm not going this year. I have spoken on panels at Comic-Con in San Diego twice. Last fall, I moderated Lionel Train's 125 years of Lionel at New York Comic-Con.
I bet that was cool.
Yeah, it was. And going back a ways, there's a bunch of events here in Chicagoland, like C2E2, and then Fan Expo. When Fan Expo was Wizard World, I did that a few times as a guest. But, I'm skipping San Diego this year, but I do these other big shows, like Nuremberg, for example. I was there. I was in Nuremberg, Germany, doing toys back in January, and I'll be there again this January coming up because, excuse me, because in the course of all of this too, I go to Nuremberg and I come home with another gig. I was elected co-president of ITMA, which is the International Trade Magazine Association, while in Nuremberg this year. So I'm doing that too. So my other co-president is in Germany. So doing that, but so we'll do a big show in Nuremberg and see all the toys coming out for like the next 2 years, and then do Toy Fair in New York, and then some smaller trade shows. Astra, which is the American Specialty Toy Retailing Association, they do a show called Marketplace and Academy. So typically do that. Licensing Expo, which is one of my favorites of the year. I was just there in last month, actually. I'm like, what month is it? Depending on when you hear this, it might be 2 months ago because it was in May. But there were 2 overlapping shows, and I was working both of them. Licensing Expo, which is where everybody goes to make the deals. So, like, Disney is there, and they're meeting with everybody that wants to make the T-shirt, the toy, the hat, all of it. So all of your top IP owners are there to make deals. But then right next door was ABC Kids Expo, and that was all your infant, toddler, juvenile products, everything from baby toys to cribs and strollers and stuff. So I was meeting with those folks, and then it just goes on and on. There used to be a cadence of the events, and then there's this weird flip-flop world I live in between the trade business side of the world and then the consumer side. Now there's just something all the time. So there isn't like a month where you're like, oh, I'm done or whatever.
So you're going
Yeah.
100 miles an hour all the time.
Yes.
I do want to talk about something we chatted about a little bit, and
Yeah.
not talking politics or anything, but I initially caught my eye on I was looking through your Instagram, I
Yeah.
think, and there's something about, you did an interview about how trade affects especially toys.
Yes.
Especially in the world we live in right now, at this time of the recording in June of 2025. So
Yep.
how is that going to play for holiday season coming up?
So it's very, very tricky. And there are a lot of strong opinions across the board, but I don't live in a world of maybes. I live in the world of reality. And the reality is, whether you want to hear this or not, it doesn't make it any less true. Right now, about 75 to 80% of the toys and games that are sold in the United States are sourced from China. There are things being made in other countries, including here in the U.S., but manufacturing is something you cannot flip a switch and just have here. And there's a phrasing that I hear a lot when I watch some of the major networks and whatnot. They talk about, bring it back home. Well, in some cases, this stuff has never been made here, ever. The very first Barbie doll in 1959 was made in Japan. The very first G.I. Joe, which is from Hasbro, and that's a Rhode Island-based company, very few of those were made in the U.S. Most of them were made in Hong Kong and Vietnam. If you look at the bottom of your Hot Wheels cars, even going back to 1968 when they launched, aside from maybe a very small percentage of the first, the Sweet 16 they call them, most of those were made in places like Malaysia, which they still are. So a lot of the manufacturing infrastructure, there's twofold. There's the bring it home, but it didn't exist here ever, so there's nothing to bring back. And the other thing that really affected not just toys, but all businesses, for better or worse, is that the offshoring that really kicked in the late 70s into the early 80s, early and mid 80s, and then by the 90s it was basically done, where certain things just couldn't be done here anymore. They were moved elsewhere. The molds were taken away. The tooling was gone. The factories were closed, and now it's done elsewhere. So even though the reliance on China has come down and continues to come down because people are changing their sourcing, but it takes a lot of time and a lot of money, and we're talking billions of dollars worth of investment to move everything. What we've been sitting at for the most part of this year is a 30% tariff out of China and 10%, if not higher, on other countries in the world. And because of that, you will see higher prices. Some of them are higher now, and you just don't even know it, because prime example is we were at Toy Fair in New York in March, and you had products that came out with a range of MSRPs. That's manufacturer suggested retail price. And they're showing this to retailers, and they're saying this is what it is. But while we were at Toy Fair, and I will never forget it, there were buzzing on the floor that these tariffs were going to kick in that week. And they did. It was the first tranche that it was like, okay, we're going to go 10%, and that was terrible. And then you go up from there, and then all of a sudden it's 30. And then it spiked to 145% for a couple weeks. And then now it's back down to 30. And as a matter of fact, as we're talking today, and this will be different by the time we listen to this, there are some rumblings that deals with China are now set into place. But as of right now, this second, no one in my space has actually seen those. So we think it's still probably hanging in that 30% range, but that does not equate to necessarily a 30% price increase at the cash register, because there's a lot of gaming behind it. There's mitigation strategies. One way that at the retail level, and I know a few of our major big boxes here are already doing it, they may raise prices on the shelf in toys or other departments to offset or keep the same more essential products, like from the food or the health and beauty, that type of thing. They might try to keep those low, even if they're at a loss, by raising elsewhere. But behind the scenes on toys and games specifically, you have, like, for example, when we say manufacturer, that's the company. So just take, for example, say Mattel. That's your manufacturer. But they have factory partners. So Mattel might eat a little bit, and then their factory partner, who's doing the actual production, they might eat a little bit. And then maybe there's a distributor after them in the chain, and maybe they eat a little bit. And then it goes to the retailer, and maybe they eat a little bit, and then whatever's left over gets passed on to the consumer. And then the other big misconception with that, too, of course, is that the tariffs are paid by the countries, and that is simply not the case. I know a guy who does board games, very small business owner, one-man operation, just paid a $2,000 tax to the U.S. government for a load of stuff he had come in the other day. And I've heard far worse, too. I mean, I've heard of people getting hit with 6-figure bills and 7-figure bills for the big ones. So, again, I get kind of wordy with this, but the information is important. At the end of the day, at the end of this year, you will pay more. You're either going to get more for less, or get less for more, or the price is simply going to be higher than it was intended. Now, on a one-to-one basis, if you're just buying, say, an action figure for your kid, if you're buying that one figure, you might not notice if it's $2 to $3 higher. But if you have a Christmas list, or you're on a limited budget and you buy for the same number of people every year, that's where you're going to start to see that, wait a second, this is either A, costing me significantly more as it's all added up, or just I'm spending the same and I'm getting fewer. So it's concerning. And the biggest thing that I look at right now is that I know a lot of really good people that have lost their jobs this year, and it's not really being reported on. All of the major companies, all of the major toy makers have cut, and these are well-paying U.S. jobs from people that design the toys, develop the toys, market the toys. All of that is done here. And again, you said you didn't want to get political, but it really does. It affects all of us. And the reality is that the U.S. is a creative economy. We are no longer the manufacturing economy that we were 50 years ago or 80 years ago. And then you really have to question, do you want that? Because even if you could build a huge manufacturing infrastructure, you're going to bring pollution back to the states that we've shifted elsewhere. You're probably not going to have the workforce you need for it. The parts that you need to build a factory are going to come from overseas. I do know a couple folks that have started new domestic manufacturing here in the U.S., but it's all automated, and the robots that they're using are coming from Japan and China. So you might it might have a brand new facility, and maybe you've got 10 jobs that pay well, and they're for the engineers running the robots. You're not all of a sudden creating 200 factory jobs. Right. And you look at sort of the kids of today too. Is anybody sitting playing their iPad or something going, I want to go work in the factory? It's not. I mean, that era is over. And there are ways that things can be done, and they can be done well to help people on all levels, but it needs to be done in a measured form. And I think one of the biggest learnings that everyone should take of the past year is that you cannot make rash decisions, period. Because when you do, there is collateral damage you never thought of that's going to emerge. And we've seen it in the toy business, and I know we've seen it in other industries. And then, of course, I say the toy business, but I'm also in media. I'm in publishing. We've seen it throughout there, too, where the job losses are real, and they're going to continue. And then when you put that as like a more granular, hyper local, like, okay, how does that affect us here in Grayslake? The world changing around us. And, we talked about the AI. They're building that data center here. That could potentially be powering some of those things in the future. We don't know who's going to buy that power that's going to be there. There are certain cases, like on the East Coast right now, they're reactivating 3 Mile Island, the nuclear plant, because Microsoft is buying all of the energy they're going to produce there. Yeah. So you've got all of these other opportunities that spike up around the other things that are happening. But I think a lot of it ends up being that you need to pivot and make sure that people are more than a number.
Most people have no idea what to do with their aging loved one who needs help. Well, there is a solution. A company that provides care and assistance to make your loved one feel right at home. At Right at Home, their mission statement is to improve the quality of life for those they serve. They offer extensive services: personal and companion care, safety supervision and transportation, fall prevention, dressing and bathing assistance, medical reminders, meal prep, hospice support, ambulation support, stroke recovery, Parkinson's support. The list goes on and on and on. If you have an aging loved one that needs help, call Right at Home. Most people prefer to age in their home rather than moving to an assisted living or nursing home. Right at Home can make this happen. Contact Right at Home at rightathomenlc.com or give them a call, 847-984-0103. Now back to the show. Absolutely. Talk about two things and a little change of things.
Yeah.
So, my guy's sitting next to me anyway.
Yeah.
That's why I went. So my little guy's sitting here. But the great memories of being a father, around the house.
Yeah.
Where you're going to play guys,
Okay.
We have toy chests full of every Marvel, action figure, everything you can think of. And how does the toy industry go around? Because, to get rid of these iPads and actually he came to me last week and brought his Ninja Turtles down into bed and wanted to play guys. And it was like the most joy that you could get, right?
Yes.
And that's what it's all about, right? So had obviously a shift in how things are made or how they're marketed to get them off the iPads and to play toys, like to play with physical toys. Has it been a challenge in the industry, obviously, right?
It's been a huge challenge, and it's not a new challenge because you also have to look at history with that too, that Atari was going to kill play
right
in 1978 or whenever that came out. Then Nintendo was just going to crush it all in 85. And then the Super Nintendo was going to crush it again in 92, and so on and so forth. It just keeps on going and going and going. Reality again, kids age out a little bit earlier, and your little guy here and I were talking because I pegged his age correctly when we sat down, and that is about the age typically when kids start to go a little bit more digital with the iPads. Now, again, how you raise your kids, that's your own thing, but not necessarily a great idea to hand your 2-year-old a smartphone and just say, hey, have at it. We're just starting to learn some of the psychological effects of this. And you start looking at, okay, how do we embrace both? Because again, like AI, I said AI is not going away. You might hate it. You might want to stomp your feet and raise your fist to the sky. It's not going away. And as we've proven, neither are your tablets. That's why a lot of toy makers, they create experiences in Roblox now, which continues. We have a lot of folks trying to merge physical and digital play into what they call phygital. Again, people love to mash up the words or create the acronyms too, like STEM, and now we have mesh. So we've got all these things going on, but you look at how they work together. So maybe there's a toy that might have something that becomes gamified on the screen. Sometimes it goes vice versa. Sometimes the things completely work together. And again, it's not necessarily like a brand new concept, because even about a decade ago, there was Lego Dimensions, which was a video game, but you built Legos and they interacted through a portal And around the same time, Disney had a thing called Disney Infinity that was a video game that had little non-articulated figurines. So there's a lot of people still working on that. But then there are some really creative new ideas I'm seeing. Like there is a company that is creating these books that are like real, normal, legit books. And sometimes they have publishing partners for this.
Okay.
But they're activated. You can activate additional content that comes in through your Amazon Alexa, which is a platform that's already installed in tens of millions of homes that you already have. It's a platform that's not going away, so it's going to continually get better. So, for example, if you little guy over here were reading that magazine and you could all of a sudden look at a toy that you really loved in the picture and then say, hey, Alexa, tell me more about this dinosaur toy. And then the dinosaur were to roar out of your Alexa and then tell you facts about the dinosaur toy. And not just the toy itself, but about the real animal that inspired it. So there are creative ways to merge all of it. And that's what a lot of folks are working on. But from a statistical basis, by about 8 is when the kids start to age out. And it used to be 10, 11. Even in some cases, I think in the 80s, 12 was still a benchmark.
Wow. Yeah, I could see that.
But, it's constantly evolving.
Which is, and it changes a lot of things. The other question to go with that one was, I think during the holidays, everybody loves the toy guides, right?
Yes.
Top toys.
Yep.
So do you have a hand in ranking some of these toys?
So for our Toy Insider brand, which is the consumer-facing part of that, we put out a holiday gift guide in print every year. Comes out in September. We unveil it at a big event in New York called Holiday of Play.
Okay.
Where top media and influencers come together, and we do one in July too that's called Sweet Sweet, that all the media and influencers, they come together, and we say influencers now, but it's like the TikTokers, the YouTubers, and all of this, but they're going side by side with like the Today Show and Good Morning America, and it's like the best of the best. They come in, they see this stuff. We unveil this top 20. We'll do a STEM 10, that if you don't know STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, sometimes people throw an A in there for arts and call it STEAM.
Okay.
We do STEM 10. We'll do a budget-friendly toys thing, which has increased the past couple of years. It used to be like, oh, people wanted stuff under $10. Well, now it's 12, maybe it's 15, maybe it's under 20. But we do get to see thousands of toys, and actually that process is happening now. That process started in May. So the process of selecting those toys. So we have basically like a guidepost that we go on that we look for certain things, play value, safety,
or you just check it out?
No, the manufacturers have to submit and show us what they have coming, because we need to know too. A lot of it has to do with toy safety too. You need to make sure that the products are legit, that they're being sold through a reputable marketplace, that they passed all the safety checks, all of that stuff. So they can come to us and say like, hey, these are our priorities for the season or whatever, and then we go through and we look at them and we determine what we think collectively is the best of the best, and had a pretty good track record with that. And we don't always agree internally too. Like, I mean, there's things, 10 of the folks on staff love this one, but maybe I don't, but they overrule because it's majority,
Right.
So we play it by ear, and we try to have fun with it, and come up with some great picks that are going to provide lasting play. And one of the things we really look at too is not just the initial price, but like what you're getting out of it long term. Like, we've got a thing on our website where families can put in, are you looking for something that is hours of play or days of play or weeks or long term or infinite. And there are things like that. There are certain toys and games that are designed to be like a kind of a one and done, like say like a little craft capsule or whatever that you open up and you do the craft and that's it.
Right.
And there are games like that too. A lot of these like new mystery games and stuff, especially for the older crowd. You'll go through the case files or whatever and solve the mystery and that's done. But maybe somebody wants a long-term play experience. So then you look at the value of it. Look at the value of like, all right, if I buy this $40 board game, we might play it for 2 years. Sure. And you compare that. One of my writers just made a great point the other day too, which is that like, you go to a movie, you're easily spending that for 2 hours of entertainment, versus you buy this thing and you can play it again and again. I mean, who's got a Monopoly in the closet that you've had for decades?
I do.
Right.
Doesn't have all the pieces, but
right.
Yes. But yeah, that's true. I wouldn't even think of that because so many of the toys, like, during Christmas time and everything, they play it that day, and then,
On that note, too, you got Gifted Game here in Grayslake.
Amen.
With the games and stuff, you can go in there, and I'm sure they'll direct you to some great picks and stuff coming out.
It's what a unique place to have in town, too, right?
Yeah.
I think it's really cool it's there. Let's talk about you in Grayslake for a couple
minutes.
Favorite place to take the family to eat?
Ooh, I do like First Draft. I mean, it's like you don't want to weigh one against the other. It's like, okay, anything on Center Street is good.
Right.
I do like Sammy's. Also, I'm going to give a shout out, even though it's just outside and technically Haynesville. Old Chicago Red Hots is good too over there.
Hey, they're still 60030 there, I think.
Okay, all right. So we'll let them slide in there. But all of those places. I mean, it's like
Sammy's is. Just
it would be an easy. I don't know.
We'd have to say exactly, because I go for different things. I just go all the way down.
But yeah, and then there's weird things too. Like, really enjoyed the 10-minute sweet shop was open.
Yeah.
Took the family over there. Brought my mom there. She doesn't even live up here. We had a great time.
Right. It was good. Yeah. No. And now in another month or so, you'll have another place to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would say that they're all great, but First Draft is always a lot of fun.
Yeah. Favorite thing to do with the family here? Or is there a festival or an event here that you guys really enjoy?
The number one, love the farmers market.
Yeah.
Come down all the time. Love the holiday stuff, the tree lighting. Always a bummer if we have to miss it for any reason. Mm-hmm. But there are certain things that we try to hit all the time. We just did our family, there's 4 of us. My wife had my one daughter in one place, and then me and my other daughter came down and watched the Pride Parade a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
The stuff at Central Park's always fun. I would say that there's not a bad event in Grayslake.
We have so much going on, too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I giggle with our friends at the Village Center, and they'll go through and they put out, their letter of what's going on this month. And I'm like, how in the hell would you actually choose? That's why it's hard to put on events here.
Yeah.
Like, I try to do it all the time and be respectful of other, things that are I would say in the way, that are around the time that we want to do them. But there's a lot of things going on. It's a good place to live.
One's a restaurant and one's not, but that I really like too. I like the Cinco Hermanos.
Cinco Hermanos is awesome.
Joint over there by Jewel.
Yep. Good margaritas there.
Yeah,
too.
There's again nothing bad. Find me something bad on their menu. I challenge you. No, it's pretty good. I love the pies over at Bake Share.
Yeah, he's great too.
So, and sometimes I'll get those at the farmers market too. Yeah. Depending on what's up. Tony's Butcher Shop. I mean, I'm probably naming half your guest roster too.
You know what? There's a reason that you are, though. That's good because they've been around. And
yeah.
I just think it's fun because I have a different perspective because now it's like I get to hang out and go say hi to Sean at Tony's Butcher Shop and down to Nick and Andy's Records. It's like the whole community we have some unique stuff as well as good restaurants, good places. People. Some of the feedback I get a lot of times is, why do you do it? Why do you interview everybody that just has businesses? Like, what about people? And then I came across you, and I'm like, okay, for Grayslake, our community is put together of a lot of very interesting people.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing, I'm like, well, how do I not know about James? Like, how did we sneak by for all of this time being here? And we probably ran into each other a bunch of times. But.
Yeah, most likely. And, you just mentioned Andy's Records, too. And it's like, yeah, we go in there all the time. I've got a special order that it should be in on July 25th I'm waiting for.
You better have
that has a toy tie-in, too.
Really? What's the toy tie-in with that?
It is.
You should see how excited he is right now. This is good.
If you watched the G.I. Joe cartoon, A Real American Hero, that ran starting in 1982, there was a master of disguise named Zartan, and he had these guys called the Dreadnoks. Well, the Dreadnoks in one episode started a heavy metal band called Cold Slither.
Oh, my God.
Well, what did they do this year? They made Cold Slither into a real band that is like a super group of guys from other heavy metal bands, and they're going to play at San Diego Comic-Con, but the album is coming out on vinyl. And I asked Nick over at the record store to order me one, so he said it's coming.
That's great. Are you going to get to go to see him play?
I'm not, because I'm skipping San Diego this year.
Yeah.
But there's just too much going on. I'll be in New York like 2 days before that, so it's wacky.
Wow. Yeah, you have a busy schedule. You're traveling a lot.
Yeah.
And before the Zoom calls, I bet you're traveling all the time.
Yeah.
Right? So you didn't. And still, I go back this. Like I'm thinking about if it takes a lot to make 100 spots in a year.
Yeah.
Like TV spots. That's a big deal.
And most of them are live. Very few are taped.
Wow. Okay, where do anybody listening that wants to see your stuff and see what you do, where do you want them to go follow you at?
Well, if you're into toys, I say go to toybook.com early and often. You can find me on virtually any social media platform as the Rockfather. I love Instagram. My biggest voice is on LinkedIn, but and that's just under me, James Zahn. But I also have therockfather.com still, which is a little bit of lifestyle content. You get like some like gardening, automotive, that type of stuff, with my rock and roll flavor on it. Toyinsider.com for all the parents, grandparents, cool aunts and uncles, any gift givers that want to look. Thepopinsider.com if you're looking for that $400 Lego set that you want for yourself. If you like the Marvel T-shirts and all of that, you get all that news at the Pop Insider. So there's a lot going on there too. And the one thing we didn't really touch on too that I should mention because it's so localized is like giving back is a huge part of this.
Yes, I'm sorry, I had that on my list here. Yes.
So for the past 11 years, I've worked with Avon Township to provide a lot of the gifts for the holidays for the families that they serve. So Michelle's been a great partner over there, and of course I worked with some folks there before her time, but we deliver stuff, and it's not just a holiday thing anymore. I leverage my toy industry connections to get stuff as needed, and I usually make 4 or 5 deliveries to the township a year, and then they'll hold on to things for the end of the year. And then with the TV segments too, the vast majority of the toys that I show on TV end up with the kids in the township from the families that need it.
That's awesome.
And then also tend to give stuff as we can to Fill a Heart for Kids down in Lake Forest, and always looking to help out. So
that's awesome.
It's certainly something I'd love to get more involved too with the community, and always working on it.
And thank you for that, because that's a big thing. And Avon Township does a really good job of identifying people in need and the things they want. So
they certainly do.
Yeah. Hats off, Michelle. You're doing great work over there with your whole crew.
Yeah, and I'd also say too that if there's anybody in Grayslake that needs toys or something for, whatever it is, like a preschool or a church or a community center or something, don't hesitate to reach out. Not always going to be able to help out, but if I can, I will.
That's awesome.
And we'll get folks stocked up as best we can.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. I appreciate that very much, because we know that there are people out there that need it. All these organizations that we have. All right, anything else we want to mention? I try to keep everything within about an hour so I don't get yelled at, but we could talk for 10 days.
This was fun. I mean, there's a lot more to do. I mean, the bottom line is love this town, love this county. I'm always thinking about the future. So there's more things I might do and get involved in locally. I've got kids that are my one is an actor, my one is a dancer. If you've attended various things here in town, you've probably seen them, and hopefully enjoyed it. And it's just trying to juggle all of it.
Right. And half the stuff is I have to hats off because it's always good to see good dads and to see how much you love them and how much
I try, and it's not easy. And I also have to give the biggest shout out to my wife because she wrangles the kids with those schedules and everything. Right. I cannot. We even have it on. We've got like the Echo Show screen in our kitchen with everybody's schedule, and I'm still going like, "What do you got going on tonight?" And it's like it's on the screen. It says like the 4 classes that the kids are going to. Right. But she works full time, manages all of that, manages the kids' schedules.
That's crazy.
And then sometimes it's like my part-time manager behind the scenes too.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you. I
You're
really
quite
appreciate
welcome.
you being here. And then,
Thank you.
let's catch up later because I want to see all these new toys, things coming out, and you have so much. You open my eyes to like how big the toy industry is. Like I just know a sliver right from talking to you. It's crazy.
It's huge, and there are so many things to discuss that people don't even realize that like here in Illinois, in even the northwestern suburbs of Chicago, you've got Radio Flyer, Create-On, Magna-Tiles. These are all companies that are based here. E-Blocks. It's just there's a list of toy makers that are here locally. Vernon Hills, you got Learning Resources, and there's so much going on, and folks don't even realize that it's sort of like right in their backyard.
Right.
But again, going back to the early part of the conversation, they're not making this stuff; they're doing everything else that goes with it. But
I just saw
your neighbors,
the e-bike company, and we're talking with them, and it's assembled in the United States. That's
right.
That's another sticker that's on the stuff.
Assembled. The qualifiers. You have to use the proper qualifiers to not run afoul of Made in the USA labeling. Gotcha. So you can have Made in the USA. You can have Made in the USA from domestic and imported parts. You can have designed and assembled. You can have all kinds of stuff.
I see.
So yeah.
I see. Thank you for being
welcome.
here, and I appreciate everything. Hey, wherever you guys are listening, do me a favor, whether you're on the Spotify or YouTube or Apple Music or wherever you're at, Amazon, hit the subscribe button so that way every week you'll be alerted to a new guest that's on the show. And I really say all the time, I think it's really important for people to listen to people they don't know. Because I think it brings our community closer together to know our neighbors, our friends. And this is like continuing education for me. Every day I get home and I'm like, hey, guess what I learned today? So it's really cool. So hopefully listeners take that away. And as I always end, everybody knows that if you don't know yet that we are running a big anti-bullying, cyberbullying kind of awareness of phones, devices that we're going to really try to make a difference in everything. So with that being said, get out there today. Do a couple of random acts of kindness. Use your device for something good. Send a lonely friend a text to say hello. Open the door for somebody. Be nice to the person at the cashier at the dollar store. I always use that one because I think it's important. People they need a smile. So get out there and do something good, kids. So that's how we're going to end. So James, thank you very much. And we will see everybody next Tuesday.